What up, guys? Today, working on something a little different. Can't always work on the old school hot rods, you know. Um, I love cars in general. I think most of us all do if we're car people. We love them all. I love the old classics. I love some of the new stuff. But anyway, today we got my 95 BMW M3 in here. This is my later model hot rod, so to speak. I love the oldies, but this thing holds a place in my heart too. I've had it for quite a few years. It's a fun little car to drive. But lately I've had a lot of whining out of the rear end on it, so I'm going to pull the third member out of it and rebuild it, because I've replaced everything in the car except the third member. So let's see. Yeah, I hope you guys can see that. Here, I'll try to get the light up in here a little better. There we go. So first thing is you got to pull your axle shaft, that out of there. Got both sides off there. You don't even have to pull the wheels and tires off to do that. Those generally there's enough room to slide those out far enough to drop it out. And this will be pretty much any independent rear end car, not just BMW. They're all pretty close to the same. Then I'm in the process of pulling the drive line right now. Instead of U-joints on this year model, they have a CV joint in there. Instead of a U-joint yoke, so pulling the bolts out of that. Let's see. Then we got one bolt up front here in the cross member, and then one on each side to pull. I'll probably have to pull that sway bar out just to get a socket and ratchet on that. But once that's out, the only place is this front cradle, so you pretty much just drop the rear end down the back of it and slide it out of that little cross member, and she drops right out of there. So that's what I'm working on right now, and then maybe later we'll have her out on the bench and we can start tearing into it and take it apart. We're replacing all the bearings and the relashing the gears and whatnot. So anyway, we'll get to that here in a little bit. Alrighty, there she is. Got her out of there. And my suspicions were right. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but that's I think that's bearings that are bad. And when that's bolted in the car and everything's solid mounted, I took all the rubber mounts out. I got solid aluminum mounts and everything. It just amplifies through the whole car and just howls going down the highway at 60. So yeah, that's what we're fixing. So anyway, here comes the fun part. Alrighty, so we got her up on the bench here, guys, and got her drained out of pretty much most of the oil. There's still going to be a little bit in there, but yeah, that is definitely an issue when it makes that kind of noise. Anyway, went ahead and pulled the front off. That's like a, what is it, like a 30 millimeter nut in there to get to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back cover next. Alright, so got the back cover off. Then we unbolted this side flange that holds the carrier in. It goes in right here. You just unbolt those bolts and it just pops up out of there. They have shims that are in here. You want to make sure and keep those with whichever side goes to which side. This is the passenger side, so we want to keep it all together, and then you'll keep the driver's side together on the other side. So I'll roll this over. This will probably slide out of here a little, maybe not. Just gotta kind of get these in here and work them together just like that. And that's where your bearing race is. We're gonna have to drive that out, and your seal's in there. But see, this has a spacer too. You want to keep it with this one, and remember which sides they go to. So you could even write on them if you want. I'm just gonna keep mine on both sides the way that it's gonna sit on the bench here. And there's your gear set. Yeah, just as I suspected, it was the front pinion bearing that was pretty hammered, so. That should be fine. This is probably going to make a big mess. I'll lay that. Alright, so there you go. Just went over to the press. I got just a little Harbor Freight press over there. I don't know if you can kind of see the top of it, that orange thing over there. Just like all the others. They're not horribly expensive. If you ain't got one, they're handy for a shop. So just push that out of the bearing. There's your crush sleeve. So the problem I had is I changed this yoke a couple times, and every time you tighten this crush sleeve, it loosens this up a little bit more. It changes the bearing load, the preload on the bearing. So I changed it a couple times, and I think it just wore the bearing out. So that's why we're dealing with this situation, but should be all new when we're done here. So probably gonna have to put this back in the press with a bearing clamp and push this bearing out as well. So I guess we'll do that next. All right, so drove this race out. It sits up inside right here. Just took a punch and a hammer, and you can catch the inside of it, and just one side then the other side, go all the way around it, just one side then the other, one side then the other, keep knocking it till it pops out of there. It too has a shim. You want to keep that, know where it goes back with that, just in front of it like so when you drive it, the new one in. For us, we're reusing the same gears. We're not changing the ratio or anything, so this shim is going to be correct for it. If you were changing your gear ratios and the pinion and all that, you would possibly have to re-shim the whole thing. That takes a whole lot of measuring and whatnot, but we're not going to be doing that because we're using the same gears. I'm just replacing the bearings, using the same shims that came with it from the factory. So all that's going to go right back together the way it came apart. Same thing with this race. There's two races, two bearings on each side of this. You know, flip it over and you can take a punch and hammer from the other side and drive this other race out the same way. And it possibly has a shim underneath it as well. You want to keep it so you know where it goes and put it right back in there. Like I say, unless you're changing the gear ratios. At that point you would probably have to reshim to get your valve light or your gear lash right. So I'll show you on this. We'll do this side. They make a lot of fancy tools for this, but you can generally get away with the regular hand tools for the most part. Just like that. So it doesn't appear to be a shim on this one at all. So no shim on the front side. Yeah, these bearings were pretty bad. And it almost looks like some pieces of metal might have got in there. I don't know if you guys can see that inside that bearing there. That's pitted nastiness in that bearing. That's what was causing all our noise. The thing was howling. Okay, guys. So I've just been moving along here. I was able to put, I forget what these are called, but you want to put it in here and give it one full rotation, nice and steady around. Roughly got like 2 or 3 Newton meters. That's about right. As that bearing breaks in, it'll loosen up a little bit too, so it's about right there. Got the new bearings pressed onto here. I just used the old race. Let's see. So I just laid the old race on there and just laid a piece of wood across there and knocked it down with a hammer till it was flush and seated all the way. So that's ready to go. Cleaned up our side caps. I cleaned this whole thing up a little bit. I didn't get too detailed, but I hosed off some of the grit and grime and dirt. But see there, I installed the new race in these. For most of the races, I just use a little Harbor Freight bearing and race punch and just drove it in there that way. About to drive this other one in. Okay. That's in there. So you can hear it when it changes tone too, when it bottoms out. You can see in here it's nice and tight against the face in there. So now we got those on. Let's see what I do. How to pick here. This kit that I got is a really good kit. I got through, I believe it was Ireland. Yeah, Ireland Engineering Motorsports. They're online. I bought other stuff. They sell a lot of different things for the BMW. But this is a really nice kit. It came with all the seals, all the bearings needed. Even came with new clips for in the stub axles to hold them in to the rear end. Came with a new lock washer for the pinion nut. Gaskets for the rear cover. All in all, I was very pleased with it. Very nice kit. So a new O-ring on that. That one over here. And there is a little more information out there online. There's a YouTube video that another company made that shows in detail how to set up gears and change your gears on these. They got several special tools and everything, and they make life a little easier, but I just wanted to show everybody that you can do it without fancy tools. Do what you got around your shop, you know. I mean, the most specialized tool I have is a press from Harbor Freight that, I mean, a lot of guys have them already. So when you put these seals in, there's a little lip right here. You don't really want to go past that little lip in there. You can see, maybe see, there's like a little hole right there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but if you go too far, you'll plug off that hole. You don't want to do it. You can see it's just on that inside edge. It should sit flush in there. Okay. comes the fun part. Almost forgot my O-ring. Yeah, with O-rings, I like to just put a little grease on it. This helps it slide in there a little bit easier. And then tear up the O-ring that way. And on these caps here, there's a little tang here. It goes up on the housing. It has some holes, some oil holes right there that line up with that, and that needs to go up. So, and make sure you put them on the right side. So this is, I have a marked, so that's passenger, driver, this is top. What the heck just happened? Oh, no. Well, that's not supposed to happen. My race fell apart here. So I guess I gotta put that back together. That'll be fun. Okay. So I was able to get these caps back in, got the bearing put back together. Alright guys, so we got this all back together, got the gears set up. We're not changing the lash, put the same shims back in. These are the same gears that was running, so we're just going to run with it. All we did is put new bearings in. So really that's it. Now we're going to clean up this cover, put it back on, fill it with oil, and slap her back in. So thanks for joining in. Like I say, it's a little departure from the 50 shoebox. It's not old, but it's still one of my hot rods that I enjoy. It's just a later model, you know, 1995, but still now she's considered a classic actually. So it's old enough, I guess we can call it a classic, but you know, you got to keep all your vehicles running. Can't just work on the hot rods all the time. So anyway, I'm gonna try and get this thing back together, and we'll see you on the next one. Take her easy, guys.